What up, Long Beach? Welcome back to your home for everything local sports in another episode of Long Beach Sports Talk, where, no better place than here, no better time than now to talk some Long Beach State hoops. As always, I am co-sports editor JJ Fiddler. To my left,
Raging Against the Machine, co-sports editor Mike Gardabasio, and actually across the table from me is
Tyler Hendrickson. How I could just tryptophan. And we've got to thank our sponsors. Obviously, Naples Rib Company. They sponsor Long Beach State, but they also sponsor the crew right here. Get some ribs down there. And also, when you're on 2nd Street, walk off the ribs, go down to the other side, and get some garlic knots at the Papalucci's.
Go fall in love with the Naples Rib Cocoa. You gotta get you some ribs.
I'm in love with Naples Cocoa.
like I said, Long Beach State hoops is our topic du jour today because Big West Conference schedules start Thursday night in the Walter Pyramid. It will be the Long Beach State women's basketball team taking on UC Irvine, while the men travel down south to face the preseason favorite Anteaters. But ladies first, gentlemen. Number one thing we got to talk about is how good this Long Beach State women's basketball team is right now. Historically good.
Well, you could say ladies first, or you could say we're going to take the 13-1 team to start with over the 6-10 team. Either one works for me. The answer to your initial query there, JJ, I would say, is they're very good. This is very legitimate. This is not just a team that scheduled a bunch of Division II opponents or sort of, cupcakes and managed to bolster their record like you'll see sometimes in high school or college sports. They're 2-1 against the Pac-12. The one loss was in overtime to USC. They right now look like a middle-of-the-road Pac-12 team, which is in the Big West a very good team. And I think it's safe to say they put themselves in the conversation for an at-large in the NCAA if they don't earn the berth. And we've never, ever even said those words together, Long Beach State women's basketball and at-large, that I'm aware of.
13-1 overall, their best start since 86-87 when, as Mike points out in his preview that you can find right now on the GazetteSports.com website, these players weren't even born when Long Beach State was this good.
Jody Wynn was just starting high school back then, so it's been a while. This is the best preseason start they've ever had, and it matches the best non-league slate that they've ever put together, and just this week began receiving votes in the AP Top 25, got 10 votes, so they're sort of in the top 30, 35 spots in the nation as far as, all teams included. And then in the mid-major polls, number 11 in the College Insider Top 25, and in the significantly better ESPN mid-major poll, they're number 4 in the nation. So people are starting to take notice all across the country of how good this team's been playing.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, how this schedule kind of worked in their favor throughout the season. You can't really control what your opponents do after you play them. There are some teams on here that didn't look like very good when Long Beach State played them, but have then gone on and won. That RPI in the top 20s is so big. Mike, expand a little bit on what they would have to do, or if they failed to do it down the stretch, would keep them away from that at-large.
Well, I think they definitely need to go. You can't have more than a couple losses in conference.
A couple being 2, right? Not 3 losses in conference is tough because then you're going in the conference tournament as maybe a 3 seed.
Right. It depends on it depends on who they lose to, but certainly what they need to do, I think the key is, and they're going to need to get to the conference tournament championship. And if they lose that game, they need to really hope that it's Northridge that they lose it to. Because if what happens is, say, Hawaii wins the Big West tournament, they're never going to give 2 at-larges to the Big West. And you want to make that clear cut that it was you and Northridge. You were both really good. You deserve to be in the tournament. They happened to win the last game between you guys. But, they're going to take they usually take a lot of Pac-12 teams. And so I think for Long Beach State to have had the performance they had against that conference, that's going to be what they'd hang their hat on if they do need to go the at-large route. Personally, I don't really know that that's going to come into it because I think this team is definitely, they and Northridge, the ESPN blog, called that a must-watch game.
Yeah, Northridge 10-4 right now.
Right, and those 4, they're quality losses. They also played a good schedule like Long Beach State did. Those are the 2 top teams in conference, I think, hands down going in. And yeah, it's exciting to have a Long Beach State team in that mix. That hasn't happened since we've been covering them.
If you go back to when the Long Beach State men made the NCAA tournament, the most recent time, that team plowed through conference play, only lost one. They lost to Fullerton in the last game of the regular season, and then ended up winning the tournament, so it didn't matter. But there was at-large discussion there as far as what that team could get done.
And that team went on the road and beat a ranked team in Pittsburgh as well.
Yes, so they had a very good resume. Didn't necessarily have as good of a win-loss record, but if they had lost the championship game, they had a chance at an at-large. So if this team does exactly what that team did, win all of their games in conference until the last one, and then if they would happen to lose the conference championship game, I think they would still get in just because they would have, almost 30 wins at that point. So I think that's a little bit too much drawing that comparison. But they would have to do something like that in order to cover up for a loss in conference, because people don't look at the Big West as a very good conference, obviously.
Well, that's the final point I'd make on that is, realistically, they should just do everything they can to win the tournament, because we always say this stuff, it sounds really good, they were 2-1 against the Pac-12, they couldn't possibly take 8 Pac-12 teams and not Long Beach State if they were 2-1, and the NCAA selection committee, they don't care. They'll do that every year. They'll take 8 Pac-12 teams and then leave the good team for the Big West. They really don't care. So that I think they should look at it as, I think JJ said when we were talking about this a couple weeks ago that nothing would surprise him at this point with Big West teams. That's absolutely true. The same thing after the women's volleyball team. They get brought in this year, and even though realistically they're a top 25 team, they get put in a 4-team regional with 2 other top 25 teams because it's just not seeded fairly. And so I think if you're a Long Beach State fan, that tournament will be crucial, because I do think they probably, unless they go 16-0 in the regular season of the Big West, I don't think you could feel comfortable or confident that they'd get that at-large. So it's really a win or go home, I think, kind of a scenario for them.
If you are a 49er fan, you've got to be having some fun watching this Beach backcourt. The dynamic duo, many as they might be, they are small but mighty. Anna Kim and Haley Meneses. They're a joy to watch. That's all I want to say. They're just a joy. And also, gosh, do they make each other better.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's sort of interesting. Someone pointed out to me, they said, they're going to have Anna Kim for another 2 years. I said, but Anna Kim and Haley Meneses this year is a different thing. And losing Haley next year, I think it won't be that same energy, because right now what you have is 2 very capable players who could easily be the point guard for this very exciting team. And what they have is, I think they've had one half in the 14 games they've played where they were both cold. And when one of them is going, they're very good. And if both of them get going, then you talk about a team that's very hard for most teams in the country to beat. Because they're exciting. They both have different skill sets, but they're strong in what they do. And it's sort of your ideal 2-quarterback system. I mean, they each have a facet to their game. They're very complementary, and they both do a great job when they've got the ball in their hand.
Make sure you check out Mike's feature on that dynamic duo cover of the Gazettes this week.
Well, and they've simply just improved from last season to this season, both of them. I mean, Meneses not having the knee brace after she recovered from the ACL, she's much faster, and she's talked about how much more comfortable she is out on the floor, a full year of playing time back from that injury. And then Kim has just been a better shooter. She's been very efficient. Shooting the basketball has improved her field goal percentage up, 14 points, Mike, from 41% to 55%. Improved 5% from beyond the arc, 7% from the free throw line, went 8 of 8 in their win at Colorado in their most recent game. So there's just a legitimate improvement that both have made, and then obviously they also play off of each other so well.
Well, JJ, I'm glad you, with the producer's hand over there, decided to go with the women's team before the men's team, because the thing I keep thinking about, and they've asked this question on a 49er board that we frequent a few times, I thought it's a great question. What if this was the men's team? People would be losing their minds. There'd be parades down Atherton. You talk about, the improvement in Casper Ware and Larry Anderson and some of those guys under the time they've been at Dan Munson. No one's ever gone from 41% to 55% shooting from the field. That's unheard of in college basketball. And to go, take the time as they did, kind of similar to the way Munson built his team over a 4-year period. That class that Jody Wynn brought in that was so good, they're starting to pay dividends off that now. Now they're 13-1 with wins over ranked teams. So it is, I think if you really appreciate this for what it is, people need to understand it's a special thing. It does not happen very often.
Well, take that and run with it. Jody Wynn is at the helm, a good head coach. Looks like a great head coach this year. and has looked like a bad head coach at sometimes because of not having players, having a tough schedule early on, just things not really clicking for her. I believe we said in the summer that this was a make-or-break year for her and her program, and they are making right now.
Yeah, make. You can mark that down as a good from the field. I think it's safe to say that Jody overscheduled in her first years there. She's a Pac-12 coach, and so she's used to playing that kind of schedule, and she didn't have the horses for it. And then injuries made that worse. We have both covered a couple games where they had 1 or 2 players off the bench available. And just some of it's weird. Some of it's not, you recruited a big girl with a history of knee problems. Some of it's like a flu bug hitting your team and wiping out 4 players when you're on the road. There's been some weird stuff. This year, and it's kind of funny, as we mentioned, it's their healthiest year by far they've had under Jody Wynn. They did still have a player medically retire in Bianca Balthazar due to too many concussions. So that's a good year for Long Beach State when only 1 player is unavailable for the whole year due to injury.
Yeah, everybody in black and gold knocking on wood right now as we go through this segment.
Yes.
But you're absolutely right, and you look at Manessis and Kim, and Tyler already mentioned it, a healthy backcourt. Look at those girls doing what they're doing because they are healthy and they have the opportunity.
Well, and it allows, Jody Wynn to have a nice rotation. And so you've seen them pull away in the second half because nobody's playing over 30 minutes. Rarely is there a game where somebody plays over 30 minutes. And so everything's spread out. The minutes are more effective when you're out there because you can go harder and you're going to get a rest and you don't have to stay in the entire game. So it does have tangible benefits to how everyone plays when they're on the floor, and it builds everyone up, and then it allows you to play the aggressive defense that they want to play and really push the tempo.
Well, it is, and that's to Jody Wynn's credit. This is the first time she's had a team that can run what she wants to run offensively and defensively, and they have been. I think they have 5 or 6 players averaging between 8 and 12 points. No one in the conference top 20 for scoring, but still with a 13-1 record because that's what they want. They want their bench to score as many points as their starters, and that's basically what they've been doing. I may have had that stat wrong. I think no one in the top 15, but I've never seen a college basketball team like that. It really is very old school, almost a old Disney movie type approach,
Well, stay with that. They want to win the Big West, and to win championships, you've got to play defense. Defense has been a key for them. Got a couple stats here about how many runs they've gone on. Well, again, make sure you read the stories about this team at GazetteSports.com and in the Press Telegram. They've gone on a couple runs early in the second half. A lot of people look at runs in college basketball and say, your offense was obviously good in that portion. Well, your defense has to be pretty darn good, too, to go on 10-0 runs, 12-0 runs to put these games away. And they're not just doing it defensively in one way or one style.
Well, I'd almost actually, JJ, take what you said even further and say their offense has been just okay during these runs. It's been a lot of runouts and transition buckets because what they're doing is defensively, they're kind of, I've made a joke to Jody Wynn about this, they're sort of the Oregon football team of college women's basketball defenses. They run almost a different defense every single possession, switching from different zones to different man matchups, whether they're switching off screens or not. They change their presses up very frequently, and what you're seeing is there's enough experience in the team that when they make those defensive calls, there's no 2.5 seconds or 5 seconds where players are trying to recall in their head everything they're supposed to do in that defense. They're reacting instinctively, which is what you have to do for that to work. But they're very fast. They're forcing over 20 turnovers a game against a couple of those Pac-12 teams. They forced 31 turnovers against Cal. They've just been excellent defensively, and because they've got those fresh bodies, you're seeing a 10-0, a 12-0, a 13-0 run. You can almost predict it. You can almost mark it down that about 5 to 10 minutes into the second half, you're going to get a run like that because they're going to get the other team on their heels, and as they continue to switch their press up, they're getting a lot of easy buckets out of that.
A lot of easy buckets and not a lot of big buckets from their opponents. They're 4th in the country in three-point defense, just over 20% from long range.
Well, and you talked about what they do in the second half, JJ. They want to dial up that pressure, and it's caused a lot of problems for teams as they have to see 94 feet of 49ers really just getting on them and leading to those easy buckets, and that's exactly what has led to those runs, and they just really can flip that switch with their defense, and they're so much fresher than the other team. That makes a huge difference.
To the Big West we go, the conference that has been topsy-turvy. We haven't seen one team kind of stick its spot atop the standings for the last few years like we did with the Santa Barbara a few years back when Mike and I were in school. But right now it looks like it's a 2-horse race with Long Beach State and Cal State Northridge. Interestingly enough, after Long Beach State takes on UC Irvine on Thursday, they will play Davis on Saturday. Davis is playing Northridge on Thursday. So that will be a good way to compare Long Beach State and Northridge before they even see each other.
And they're both road games for Davis. Yeah, I mean, I think you can throw Hawaii. There's some other good teams in there, but far and away, it's been Long Beach State and Northridge, I think, that you'd look at. The interesting thing to me, Jage, that you mentioned is last year they had the most competitive Big West season ever in terms of lower seeds beating higher seeds. This year, realistically, I think everyone's kind of like with that men's team, the Long Beach State and Santa Barbara, you kind of want to just pencil in Long Beach State Northridge to the tournament championship and say if anything else happens, it's kind of a shame.
Well, but you mentioned it. There's some teams that are ready to sort of make that jump. Davis being one of them. They're dangerous. They can really shoot the ball. So that'll be a good test early. Hawaii is a tough place to go and win. They have a great home court advantage, and UC Riverside has made a huge jump from the cellar. They have one of the nation's best scorers in Brittany Crane. So it'll still be a lot of fun and still be a lot of tests for Long Beach State. But I think you're right, Mike. Everyone's looking at the conference from the outside and saying, there's our hierarchy. We want to see these two teams play 3 times and see who's really the best.
First things first, it's a black and blue rivalry in the Walter Pyramid Thursday night, 7 o'clock, Long Beach State, UC Irvine. You'll find all the coverage right here, as always. To the men's team we go at Long Beach State, where the 49ers are going from the frying pan into the fire. The most difficult non-conference schedule in the nation yet again in 2014, only to see 2 of the best teams the Big West has to offer in 2015. Going to take on preseason favorite UC Irvine on Thursday night on the road, and then also on the road, travel up to Davis to see the Aggies. The Aggies have the best non-conference schedule in 2014 for the Big West, so it is a tough start, but this Long Beach State team knows tough. They've just went on one of the toughest road trips that they've had in the Dan Munson era, and that's saying something because Dan Munson does not dodge anyone when it comes to the non-conference. We bring in Chris Trevino. Well, he's a Cowboys fan, so maybe we won't bring him in. Never mind. Let's bring him in. Chris, what it do?
How you doing, JJ? I'm going to let that slide because we're playing on Sunday, so that's all good with me.
Oh! Chris, you've been following this team. Have you noticed a difference in this squad? Obviously, we haven't had a lot of chances to see them play in the Pyramid, but let's go from the Nevada game at home, a win, and then all those losses on the road, and then the Fresno Pacific win at home last weekend. Does this team look like they're better?
I think so. I mean, I talked with Coach Munson about that. He felt this team is a better defensive team, a better rebounding team for all they went through on that 6-game road trip. They still need to work out some consistencies. He says technically they are a better team, but they still have some mental stuff to clear up. But I mean, just watching them against that Fresno Pacific game, you could see they were just letting out so much frustration. 6-game road loss, and they just wanted to put it all out there against those Sunburns, and they did.
Yeah, not enough SPF for their visitors to hang in that game. But I think that is the key difference is what they've done on defense. We've seen them compete in games. You look at the San Diego State game when they went on the road. That's the team that was ranked 18th in the nation, has a ton of size, but Long Beach really competed, drew 6 charges in the first half of that game, and really hustled to stay in that game and then let their guards sort of shoot them into the game in the second half, and they almost were able to pull that upset. So I think that's a better recipe, and defense always works. And so if you can go out and play good defense, the offensive inconsistencies you can sort of mask over a little bit better when your opponent is having trouble scoring.
Absolutely, and that San Diego State game, that defense was superb for stretches, but I think the big thing was that they started thinking their offense was going to win it for them. I think that's what Munson said. He said the offense thought we could win it at the end, but no, you need the defense to close out that game. And they went on that drought and then let them back in. And they also had stuff like that against Texas. Against Texas, they had a big run, took the lead, held the Longhorns out, and then Texas came back with another run, took the lead, and then it was over from there. Also happened in the St. John's game. So their defense hasn't been improved, and you can see it in stretches of certain marquee games, but then they kind of fall off a little bit, and they get a little complacent.
Well, and I think they can, in many ways, get sort of worn out towards the end of games, and that's what these big power conference teams can do to you, is that they have the strength advantage, the depth, and all that kind of stuff. So you really have to, it's going to be easier, I think, in Big West play to sort of stay in the full 40 minutes and be able to close those games out, because that's where they weren't able to do it. They had to play so hard for the first 30 minutes, and then they ended up losing the last 10 in a lot of those games where they kept it close for a while.
They were able to keep it close because Mike Caffey is leading the way yet again. When Mike Caffey leaves Long Beach State, he will leave Long Beach State as one of the best basketball players to ever do it in black and gold. He's averaging 16 points and almost 4 assists per game right now. He's going to go over 400 career assists this week, which will make him only the 4th Long Beach State player to have over 1,000 points and over 400 assists at Long Beach State, to join NBA alums Casper Ware, Ed Ratliff, and Craig Hodges. And also, as a preseason first-team All-Big West, you can expect he will be that at the end of the year, which will make him a 3-time first-team All-Big West honoree, alongside Larry Anderson, Francois Wise, and Ratliff. So you can talk about all the things Mike Caffey hasn't done, like take his team to the NCAA tournament like the point guard before him did, Casper Ware, or get that signature win on the road against one of these big-time teams like that team did in 2012 at Pittsburgh. But you cannot hate on what Mike Caffey has done statistically throughout these 3 years and then into this, his 4th year, his senior year, as the guy. He is the guy. He caffeinates this team.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. He is the guy of this team. You can see him take over games. I mean, that San Diego State game, that was just all him in the second half. He was just turning it on. I mean, Tyler, you came away really impressed with him. And to be fair, they should have had that win in San Diego State for a marquee road game win against a ranked opponent. But I think he's going to be remembering that last shot he had, the layup, that just a little bit off. But he has been superb for this team, and they're going to go as far as he's going to carry them.
Well, and I think that's the case. I mean, he's going to be that leader. Casper was definitely the leader during his senior year.
Unquestioned.
He had a more stable and consistent supporting cast as part of the Big Four that had been there together.
A more talented supporting cast?
It's just really tough to say because, we had seen those guys for so many years and their chemistry was so good.
Right.
So it's tough to really compare talent or ability to play together. They were certainly more productive, the Big Four, whereas there's been some moving pieces coming in. Obviously it was James Ennis for a little while. He's more talented than anyone else in the Big Four. No disrespect meant.
No.
But, he's in the NBA, so obviously he must be doing something right. And then he had, Keala King, that experiment that didn't exactly work out, and then now, Tyler Lamb being that guy and some other pieces. It was more consistent with Cass, but Caffey's definitely making it work, and he is going to take this team. He's definitely more head and shoulders the guy, even than I think Casper was, to be honest with you.
Really? Well, because all I can think of when I think of Casper Ware is the last time we saw Casper being Casper in the Honda Center, beating Santa Barbara, finally getting over that hump, winning the Big West. I mean, he just went crazy in that game. We did a watch Casper do work video just because he had so many highlights in that game, going for over 25 points there. And I hate to say it, but I keep thinking it, like, this team's only going to go as far as Caffey takes him. Caffey's legacy is only going to go as far as this season goes. If they don't make it to the championship game in the Big West, if they don't win that thing, it's so disappointing to think that a guy who's done so much for this program for so many years, not even coming in as the guy who's like, this is the guy who's going to start. He won that job as a sophomore and then did it again as a junior, first team Big West both times. But is it going to take one more victory, one more time where you go, remember that game, ... for us to remember Caffey the way he should be remembered?
Yeah, he's got some game winners, and, he was on that team that went to the tournament as a freshman, but he did not carry the team, and he was not the guy. He was a supporting guy. So I think he sort of is missing those marquee moments like you're saying, JJ, but that's what senior years are for. And so this is his time to do that, and he's obviously got the skill and the teammates to get that done, and I think he's in a very good position to do that. I don't necessarily think they have to get to the tournament to cement his legacy, but it would certainly help quite a bit.
Speaking of those teammates, the bench has emerged for the beach, which is something we didn't say while Casper and that Big Four were taking over everything at Long Beach State for men's basketball. Right now, you've got guys coming off the bench that's got an 11-man rotation going for Dan Munson. And like I said, you just haven't seen that. I mean, look at Branford Jones, look at Tyler Lamb, look at David Samuels, all guys who at one point in their beach career came off the bench and now are all viable starters. But 9 guys going into double figures at one point this year, that's just never happened, and 3 of them are freshmen.
Yeah, we knew this was going to be a deep team for Munson. I mean, just by the fact that every time I talked to him in preseason practice, he kept bringing up, it's going to be one of my deepest teams, one of my deepest teams, one of my deepest teams, and they're backing that up. The freshman class, he's playing them, Timothy Yusuf, Jack Williams, Deontay North is getting minutes, and then you got guys like Branford Jones coming and doing things off the bench really well. Travis Hammonds, this is just a really deep team. It just shows how talented this team could be when it has a good bench behind them. Caffey got in foul trouble against Fresno Pacific, and then in comes Justin Bibbins, played most minutes on the team, most minutes he's had all season, set some career highs. So it just shows that Munson really likes the depth of this team, and he trusts his guys down there on the bench.
Speaking of guys who have developed themselves here at Long Beach State. Tyler Lamb started the season kind of rough because he missed the first 2 games. But after missing the first 2 games, he scored 17 points and 3 rebounds with 2 blocks in his first start back, and he's averaging 10 points and 4 rebounds per game. That's second on the team in both of those categories. Chris, do you think Tyler Lamb has reached his potential, or could he take this team to the next level with a little bit better shooting percentage? He's only at 38% from the field right now.
I definitely think he has not reached his potential as of right now. I mean, and he could definitely take this team to another level, and I think they need him to make that jump and possibly, reach the big dance in the tournament. Last year he had to miss the first, I believe it was 10 games of the season, and then when they got him back, they were much, much better for it. So obviously he's not, I don't know what it is, he's just really inconsistent. He first came out, he had 17 points, and he had a really good game, and then a couple weeks later he just dropped 3 points in his return home to UCLA. So it's just up and down, and they really just need to find him a consistent. He just needs to be more consistent with his team, really struggling from the 3-point line, just 28% shooting, shot 37 last year. So I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I talked about that with Munson earlier in the season when he had a good game, just getting Tyler's confidence back. He said, Tyler's always confident. I just think he's just passing up some shots. And he didn't start last week, so they just need him to be a guy back there. I mean, it hasn't been the dynamic 1-2 punch, him and Caffey, that we expected early in the season. Maybe that'll change once Big West play starts.
Well, they've got a few weeks to figure it out, and I think, a lot of times maybe he forces or settles for the outside shot, and so maybe he needs to attack and make it a little more rack of lamb going to the 10, and that might open up his outside game a little bit more, but he obviously has the potential to be that second option right behind Caffey and be his sidekick as far as scoring the rock, because we've seen him be able to do it, but it's all about consistency and not having that slip up, especially when you get into the Big West tournament, which is must win because there is no at-large, so you have to win the tournament, and he needs to be that guy that can be that consistent scoring presence.
Like I said, Big West Conference schedule starting this week, Thursday at 7:30, Black and Blue at Irvine. The rivalry continues, and it's a tough one for Long Beach State because this is the team in the Big West that everybody's looking at right now. Obviously, Mamadou Unjai in the middle there, the defending Defensive Player of the Year. He's been sitting out recently, but that's because they want to save him for this Big West run. We'll see if he plays on Thursday or this week at all, but he's not the only guy over there in blue and yellow who are doing it for the Anteaters. They've got 4 returning starters from the team that won the Big West Conference regular season championship last season. Obviously, very, very good defensively, and they are finding themselves offensively. They almost beat Oregon and New Mexico State in their non-conference. Over at UC Davis, Coach Les was trying to figure out a way to get a spark under his team, and he did so with a little bit easier scheduling this year. They are 10-4 headed into the Big West Conference schedule because of that scheduling. Got a big win at Air Force in December, 81-75. And they've got Corey Hawkins, who's pretty good. Big West Player of the Year candidate to be sure. He comes from Arizona State, and it took him just 53 games to become the 20th member of the UC Davis men's basketball team to put up 1,000 points. He put up 1,000 points in 53 games. So he's pretty darn good at scoring the basketball. Averaged a team high 18 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 3 assists last season, and putting up pretty much the same exact numbers. He actually leads the Big West in scoring right now. So you're going to take on 2 teams who are very different, both on the road. Tough go for the Beach.
Very tough, and I just got to say, if it plays in Peoria, it'll play in Davis, as Jimmy Les, who led Bradley to the Sweet 16 after playing there, and played with Hersey Hawkins, NBA player, played with the Sixers and the Hornets, father of Corey Hawkins. So it's all tied together, and Corey Hawkins is a baller this year, somebody that they definitely need to lock up on, and that's a tough trip. You go to Irvine, and then you have to make a quick trip all the way up to Davis. Obviously, Long Beach State familiar with difficult travel situations, so they're going to laugh at the idea that that's a difficult trip. I get that. But these are not easy gyms to go into, and these fan bases have reason to be excited about their teams, so it's going to be hostile environments. We're going to find out real quick what this team's about on this trip, because it's hard to imagine a much tougher trip unless you put Santa Barbara in there, but obviously that always comes with Cal Poly. But this is definitely one of the toughest trips on the season.
Yeah, and then they get Santa Barbara on the first weekend at home. They really start with a hard schedule in this Big West, taking on some of the best teams. But Chris, is this a good, bad, ugly? If they go 2-0, it's good. If they go 1-1, is that bad? And if they go 0-2, does that really put them in a hole?
I think so. I don't think 1-1 is the end of the world. 0-2, I think it would be. because, Munson said early he thinks this is the best the Big West has been since he's been here, and he even thinks it's better than when he said that entering league play. So to go 0-2 in a very, very good conference, that's pretty ugly.
Yeah, because then, like I said, you've got those Gauchos waiting for you at home next weekend.
It will be very difficult, but I think you got to be patient because we saw the ridiculous parity in last year's conference tournament.
True.
And that's what it comes down to. So you're playing for seeding at this point, and seeds, throw them out the window, the second-story window. It was Johnny Appleseed. You're just throwing them all over the place because who cares? You saw teams that had no business making the final, quote-unquote.
Looking at Cal Poly.
Yeah, Cal Poly and Northridge. Where the heck did you come from? The top seeds lost in their first game. It was absolutely bananas Foster and Honda Center. So you don't have to necessarily worry about the seeds. You just have to worry about how well you're playing. But I think it would make you nervous as a fan if they go 0-2 to start out the year, even though they would be understandable losses. But I think they're on track to at least get one of these.
So that road trip is huge, like we said. Irvine on Thursday, Davis on Saturday. All of your Long Beach State hoops coverage is right here, as always. That's it. That's all. There ain't no more. Another episode of Long Beach Sports Talk in the books. We were just doing Long Beach State. Next week, we will be doing Long Beach High School hoops as they get underway. You can look at the massive Moore League boys basketball preview that we just put up on the Gazettes. Make sure you share that all over social media and let everybody else know what they need to know before they hit the gym on Friday night. Woo-wee! Talk about starting hot. We got a good one at Milliken. It is the Rams and Jackrabbits. Obviously, it has been the preeminent rivalry on the girls' side. Yet again, those Jackrabbits looking good. Rams trying to knock them off. But on the boys' side, I can't think of two better games than the two games we saw at Poly and then at Milliken. Poly putting up 23 points in the fourth quarter at Milliken to hand the Rams their one and only loss at home that year. Whoa. And remember, we were a tip back away from going overtime on opening night.
At the end of that game at Milliken, starting point guard KJ Fagan blew kisses to the Milliken student section and said, "This is my gym." We get to see what happens as a result of that this year. I'm very excited for that game.
What is the response from the Splash Zone? Really looking forward to it.
All I see is fireworks. So make sure you're following all the coverage at GazetteSports.com and the Press Telegram for Mike, for Tyler, for Chris, for JJ.
For JJ, this is Mike
everybody
Gardabasso
else
wrapping up
talking to you about Long Beach sports and then giving you the coverage non-stop because what we do. Welcome to 2015. Nothing's changed. We are your home for local sports. See you in the stands this weekend.
Except I do the outros now.
Peace. Ready for the big ride, baby. What up, Long Beach? Oh, no, Tyler had something to say. We have to wait till Tyler can get his last word in.
I had to react to that.